Good evening, everybody. The meeting will come to order. Madam Clerk, could you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Yes. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's Office in preparation of the Council Annual Meeting Notice dated December 30th, 2021, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements. Please be advised that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain it at the system at the dais and return it thereafter.
Thank you. And now roll call, please.
Ms. Allen? Here. Ms. Hairston?
Here.
Ms. Little?
Here.
Mr. Miniger?
Here.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Vartan?
Present.
President Fox?
Here. And now if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you please read the explanatory note and about closed session and hearings and comments, please?
A closed session meeting as authorized by state statute was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Summit YouTube channel and Comcast Channel 36 and Verizon Channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HTTV on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, spell your last name, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or council member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the City Clerk's office at cityclerk@cityofsummit.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes or so in length. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you. And now moving on to the approval of minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of regular and closed session for May 3rd?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And moving on to reports. Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. Summit's annual Memorial Day Parade and ceremony will take place on Monday, May 30th at 10 a.m. The parade honors the men and women who have lost their lives in military service to our country. It will begin at 25 DeForest Avenue and proceed to the Village Green. All participating organizations should line up in the parking lot behind 25 DeForest Avenue at 9:30 a.m. Veterans who are unable to march may request a ride in the parade. Please meet members of the American Legion at the start of the parade route at 25 DeForest to request assistance. Spectators are encouraged to gather on DeForest Avenue, Beechwood Road, Union Place, and along Maple Street to the Village Green. It was a great number of people that were lining the parade route last year, and I hope it's the same this year. It was a lovely event. As you may remember, May 30, 2022 marks the 5-year anniversary of the death of Detective Matthew Tarantino. While his watch may have ended, memories of his important contributions to our community live on. To honor Detective Tarantino's life and career with the Summit Police Department, members of the department will march in the parade wearing a commemorative number 121 armband. I look forward to joining them in that lovely tribute. And I will tell you that the day before he died was the Memorial Day Parade 5 years ago, and it was raining. And Matthew loved parades. And we didn't have the parade because it was raining. So we just had something on the green. And I remember him coming up to me and saying, "Mayor, I'm so glad we're doing this, but I'm so bummed we didn't have a parade." And the next day he was gone. Summit Police Department's annual food drive is continuing now through June 3rd. Canned food and non-perishable items will be collected and donated to Loaves and Fishes food pantry of St. Teresa of Avila Church in Summit. There is a collection bin in the police department lobby at City Hall and in several other Summit locations. Please go to cityofsummit.org for more information. I would like to congratulate Police Officer Keith Koyatek and juvenile detective Sean Thompson on their successful ride to Washington, D.C., along with thousands of other law enforcement personnel to honor those that have been killed in the line of duty. They left New Jersey on May 9th and rode south, reaching Washington, D.C. on May 13th. Great job to all the riders. And finally, children in pre-K through 5th grade who are collecting Summit Police Department trading cards have until May 31st to collect a minimum of 20 cards to enter the prize raffle that will be held in June. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to Michael Rogers for the City Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening. Just 2 items. This week is National Public Works Week. Each day this week, we will be highlighting the various roles and responsibilities of the city. Hold on one second. There's stuff popping up over my... Yikes. Okay. Roles and responsibilities of the City of Summit's Division of Public Works on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our Division of Public Works crews are on the front line providing essential city services each day and in emergency situations. And we thank them for all that they do for our municipality. And then just the last item, May 31st is the deadline to renew CAT licenses for the next license year, which begins on June 1st. So please visit cityofsummit.org for more information. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And then I have a few items as well. As a reminder, the last day to register to vote in the June primary is today. If you still need to register, the clerk's office is upstairs, is open till 9 p.m. this evening, or you can go to cityofsummit.org for more information. Following the New Jersey bag ban that went into effect on May 4th, reusable bag collections continues in the lobby here at City Hall, out by the door. And the door is open on a 24-hour basis, so if you need a bag for grocery shopping, you can stop by any time to pick one up. You can also drop off, if you have extra bags that you're not using, you can donate them there. The first annual Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI Heritage Month event will be held on Saturday, May 21st. And the free event will take place from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the Village Green. All citizens are invited to attend to celebrate and learn about AAPI culture. For more information about this event, you can find it at summitcommunityprograms.com. Are you in the process of opening a business in Summit? If you are, then please check out the new page on the city's website that has detailed information about necessary permits, licenses, and other required steps to help guide you through the process. It can be found at www.cityofsummit.org/business. And with that, we'll be moving on to, we have a report from, about the fire headquarters from Chief Evers and Deputy Chief Mbimbo as well.
Yep.
Okay, come on up.
Madam Mayor, Council President, appreciate it giving me the opportunity to come tonight with the new fire product. Very exciting times. It's been a long project upcoming, so we're glad to give our first really big report on progress of the building. So I'm just going to discuss a little bit of the financial piece of it, and Deputy Mbimbo will talk more about progress that's been made to date, so we'll go over that. All right, so real quick, we started we had a groundbreaking in October. We had a bid of $15 million. The total project bid is $15,686,550. That includes the original bid for the construction cost. It also includes a contingency, those overruns, that unexpected overruns that come across in a project. And it was also a balance of $352,000 for the architectural services. So that gave us a whole entire working budget. To date, we have had no net charges for construction costs as far as the project goes. Everything now is included in the bid spec so far. There hasn't been any kind of change orders. There's been a couple of discussions about it, but our team got together with architects and design team, and we felt that things were needed, so we're pretty much on track with that. There was some cost we didn't foresee, and Paul will get into that a little bit more, his part of it, but New Jersey Transit had some costs we had to get. We had to get some railroad liability insurance. We also had to negotiate with New Jersey Transit to get some flagmen to protect the right-of-way. So that's a cost that really didn't think we would have to spend. We did some homework back years ago, but then that went for the product. Those are some costs that we had. So, and that came out of our contingency costs. And then the other piece of it was just the balance of the architects. We had just whatever remaining of the architects to date. So far with the project, we've paid out a little under $1 million, $9,000. That includes our pay applications for the construction cost, some of the overruns for contingencies, and then balanced on the architectural piece of it. There are two items that we foresee coming up that'll be a charge to our contingency cost. That is, as you stated before, New Jersey Transit flagmen. They have an hourly rate. The contracts are really managing when they come on scene. Anytime they're within proximity to their right-of-way, they require flagmen. So Brahma is doing a great job on managing and controlling those costs as far as goes to New Jersey Transit flagmen. And another one, that site had monitoring wells from a neighboring business years ago. They were all clean. There is one well close to the track that has to be replaced. We had to demo it, do our construction. That well has to be replaced, and we felt that because we had to make the business owner remove it, it was only fair that, we incur that charge to replace the monitoring well. So that's one cost that's going to be coming up in the near future. So those are really the only two costs that we're going to foresee as any kind of change orders coming up with the project to date. All right. Any questions on the budget part of it? I'm happy to answer anything while I'm up here. If not, I can turn it over to Deputy.
So I'm confused. One well has to be replaced, and who's the owner of that well?
Sleno Dwayne.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just it's a monitoring well that can, anytime ground's contaminated, they call it a well. It's just a piece of pipe that goes in the ground and it measures groundwater for any kind of contaminants. Contaminants were from cleaning products from years ago. Everything was clean, even though while it's there now, it's actually almost drinkable water, but the DEP standards are where they're at, and so it still has microscopic samples of the contaminants. So we're hoping that by the time this project's done, that'll clear up with all the digging. Something the groundwater gets, dispersed along the site. So hoping by the time that well gets installed, they start taking some samplings. At some point, that'll be, capped off as well. So
And what's that costing?
the cost for the replace the well is $12,080. And that also includes anytime you work with the New Jersey Transit right-of-way, any worker has to go to a training class. So that includes $2,000 to send their teams. Yeah, it's a cost. So
Right.
yeah, so I think the well replacement was like 10 grand plus a couple grand for the training class for the workers. So that's what it comes out to be. So, alrighty,
Thank you.
great. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to the Deputy Chief Bimbo.
The first thing we had to deal with when we started the project was a delay built in by New Jersey Transit. When we contacted them back in 2019, their regulations and the requirements for permitting and working in the right-of-way established an area of 15 feet from the right-of-way. When we went to start the project, it became 30 feet. So we were forced to secure permit from them and secure insurance so that we could work in their right-of-way. And as the chief said, certain times when we're working in that area, we have to have flagmen on scene, especially when we're going to be working overhead, hanging steel, doing stuff like that that could potentially impact their tracks. We'll have to have flagmen on duty. Brahma's working well. They're kind of consolidating all that work into short time frames, so we don't have to have flagmen there consistently. So when they're working within that 30-foot range, especially when they're going overhead, we're going to need to have flagmen there. Site work was begun in February 22. While we weren't allowed to work within 30 feet of the tracks, they started the site work on the outside of that. They drew a line and they began demoing the parking lot and some of the site work that they needed to do to prep for the foundation and the footings. As of now, that is 90% complete. Footing work started in March. We anticipate it'll be completed within the next couple weeks. The footings were all in, and on top of that now, the foundation work has started. Again, that was being done simultaneously with the footing work, so we anticipate that will be done by the end of May as well. We have some pictures. I don't know how well you could see it on here, but that's when the excavation started. Right there, they're demoing the parking lot, and if you could see by the fence in the back, they're still parking the parking lot there because we have not secured the permit from New Jersey Transit yet. So they worked outside of that 30-foot right-of-way until we had the permit work and we were able to do it. They had planned on starting at the back of the building and working towards Broad Street, but because of the permit problems with transit, they started in the front and they reworked their schedule and worked towards the back of the building. After the demo, they started doing some of the excavating. You can see some of the forms here being set for the footings. Because of the type of construction we're doing with footings and piers, we didn't have to excavate too deep. You can see the soil is fairly clean there, so we didn't have a lot of surprises as far as getting rid of unusable soil that we could use to backfill. We did come across some large chunks of concrete about 10 foot by 10 foot, that had to be removed. And we did come across some slightly contaminated soil that was from railroad ties that were buried, but that was all part of our plan. So that soil is going to be removed. It's part of the original bid that we had put forward. So they're in the process of moving that out as well. Here you can see the foundation work being done. On top of the footings, the cinder block foundations are being put in. They currently are in the process of filling in all the holes in the cinder block, so that makes one solid wall. They anticipate that will be done by the end of the month. They have a few other things to go, and it's on this slide. You can see the progress they had made. That's a few weeks later. That is the full foundation work of the building, other than what's going to be underneath the floor of the bays, because that is just one giant slab. Here's a picture of their plans. All the green is foundation work that is complete. So you can see the full envelope of the building is complete. The piers on the inside, the green squares are complete. The yellow marks some stuff that has to be done. They have to do some insulation on the outside of some of the footings. It's a little hard to see there. And they have some initial forms they have to install before they could backfill. But for the most part, that is complete. And like I said, within 2 weeks, that should all be completed. This is a snapshot of the schedule that we have. It's kind of hard to read, but it's actually over 1,000 lines long and several hundred columns wide, so there's no way we could actually put that up so there'd be any way we could read it. What Brahma does is gives us a snapshot every 2 weeks. When we have a construction meeting, they give us a snapshot of the next 2 weeks that we're going to be doing moving forward. This shows, I know it's hard to see, building excavation as of our last meeting was 90% complete. It shows in green the schedule for the test pit to be put in and some of the other work that's going to be done. The following steps, we're going to do site work for drainage and water retention. Most of the site work was done in the middle where the building is going to be so that they can maintain some of the parking lots to store some of the stuff that we had ordered. Brahma was, because of the problems with the supply chain, Brahma made their orders right away. When we signed the contract, they started ordering steel and other stuff that they would need, so they needed somewhere to store all that. So they left much of the parking lot in place, so if you go by there, you'll see a lot of pipe, a lot of formed concrete blocks that are going to go in, so that's all stored on the site. So what they're going to do, they're going to start work for the drainage and water retention, which is on the Salerno side of the property. So they're going to excavate what's left of the parking lot and the entrance off of Broad Street, and that's going to be where all that large corrugated pipe goes in for drainage. Foundation boring is going to have to be done for utilities, so once they finish that foundation, they have to bore for plumbing, wastewater, electric, anything that goes in from the outside has to be done. So they finish the foundation first, and then they're going to bore for that. Once they do that, they could prepare for backfilling, which would be using the dirt that's on scene. They may have to bring some others in and backfill around the whole building before they start hanging steel. The test pit that the chief was talking about is going to be reinstalled in July. It's already on the schedule. So once all the backfill is done and the foundation boring is complete, they'll be able to put that back in. Steel installation is the next big step. We were afraid that supply chain issues were going to force us to be delayed. When they ordered the steel originally in the beginning of the year, they were told that it wouldn't be delivered until possibly late August or September. They were hoping for an April delivery. We just found out that it should be delivered in June, so we'll be able to hang steel late June, maybe early July. They'll be able to get started. So it should put us back on track and back on schedule. That's a brief recap of what's going on. There wasn't a lot of good pictures unless you want to see a lot of dirt and a lot of cinder blocks. There's not really a lot to see. But that's where we're at now. They're making really good progress. They're sticking to their schedule. They've had great weather to work, knock wood, and hope that stays. And we could hopefully be talking about finishing around this time next year. So,
That's great news.
if there's any questions, we'll be, yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Council President. Well, thank you for that report, Chief knows I miss hearing about this on a regular basis and trying to envision it, so it's good to hear it in progress. And I was wondering if there was any disruption to the parking, the folks and Salerno Dwayne. Is there any?
Salerno wasn't aware that they're going to lose the exit that they've been using into the parking lot. They have the ability to go around the back of the building. Some traffic studies they did years ago, they're not allowed to use that entrance at the traffic light as an entrance and exit. So he's going to have to reroute his exit around the back of the building to lower on, I think it's on Park Ave, they'll have to go. But we never made plans for them to be able to use our apron due to the fact that it's emergency response area.
Gotcha.
We're still negotiating with Leonard Grant on that topic. So
Yeah.
Okay.
that's kind of a topic of progress on that.
So the garage? Nothing with the garage?
Our parking deck?
Yeah.
No. Honestly, there's a lot of empty spaces there now.
Still empty.
But once it's complete, they should have no problem with the traffic flow going in and out. That's what they're using now, and it hasn't been an issue, so we don't foresee any. I don't know if there's plans to put another exit in onto Broad Street, but that would lose spots.
Okay.
So everything's been working smoothly for now, so I don't see any problems in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Members of council? Oh, Andy.
Thank you, Council President. Just so a question about that 1,000-line document. Is that something that we have put on the website to follow?
It's on what they call their Procore site. It's basically, it shows each step of the process, and then to the right is what day it's going to happen. So they have it laid out to what date it is. We have access to it. I don't think.
We could probably arrange to get it somewhat of a schedule on the website if council feel that's the need they want. But
Yeah.
right now, it's just an internal.
Probably better. to be on the
Yeah,
mic,
exactly. So right now, Procore is just an internal program that we use. Brahma uses it, and it's limited access because a lot of sensitive material on it, but part of that does have scheduling. So we have meetings every 2 weeks with the fire department's planning team, the architects, and Brahma's construction team, and they provide us schedules. So it's something maybe we could, once we get a little more of a tight schedule, we could maybe share that if you feel that's be helpful for residents. But yeah, they give about every 2 weeks they give a schedule, looking 2 weeks ahead, a month ahead. So, but it's constantly
Right,
moving.
I don't know
Yeah.
how useful that is if it's constantly moving.
Yeah, so it's
And
kind
it's
of
an
something.
internal work document, I'm not so.
Yeah, and I would,
sure.
yes, I would really recommend it.
Well, I
but-
mean, maybe we'll just have you come and do regular updates and,
I think so.
and
Yeah.
also ask the communications office
Yep.
to kind of keep the public posted,
Exactly.
on major phases of the project.
Yep.
Does that work?
Yeah, yeah. And as we move forward,
Yeah.
as we start to hang steel, we'll be doing more updates. Right now, it's just really a bunch of block and dirt, but as we start really get moving, there'll be a lot more updates to give periodically, so we'll make sure we keep everybody
Okay,
up
we
to
look
date on
forward to that.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments, Councilmember
Yeah,
Sullivan?
just for you, Chief, because the last meeting I asked you about, you talked about an extensive meeting you had with New Jersey Transit. Michael was there, architectural team, all of you guys were there. And you settled a lot of things, and then you come back tonight, and now they're still in the picture. I mean, are they going to be kind of a pain in our side a little bit?
No, I mean, it was just a surprise, because we actually, our internal fire F team, we did our due diligence back in 2019. And we posed them the building, we gave them all the prints, and they gave us some feedback. And then a couple years later, change in management, they had some little different thought process. Some of their policies have changed, but ever since, as soon as we negotiated with them and got to a good place, they've been fine. It was really just setting up the unknowns about how many flatmen were needed, when they were needed, proximity to their, they call it, potential to foul their right-of-ways. Once they got a better picture on what a project's about, and they met with the design team and the contractors, they're a little more comfortable with what's going on there. So, and since then, they've actually been on scene less and less. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, but at the beginning, I think it was really just more their uncertainty with what the project was what was going to happen with it, and getting somewhat of a comfort level on what work's going to be done within their right-of-way. So.
All right.
But they've been great. As of now, they've been great moving forward, so no problems.
Any other questions? Councilmember Allen?
Sure. Thank you, Council President. This is more for Councilwoman Hairston. Were you asking if when you asked about the parking at Broad Street, were you asking if the parking was returning any of that, or were you actually just referencing the exit and entrance?
Both.
Both. Okay, I just wanted, so I didn't think that one of your questions was answered. So, do you want me to ask it?
Sure.
Okay, so I guess the question would be, some of the parking went away, the commuter parking, is that your just,
Oh, no, he answered it. He said
Oh.
there's not a problem because
okay.
there's not enough, there's already vacant spaces there already, so it's not an issue.
okay, but the commuter I guess to a follow-up to that then, would any of the commuter parking come back? Is that?
Yeah, so part of our goal was, when we started this whole project, was that we wanted to make sure that as many Summit residents who park on that outside lot regain their space at some point. So at the end of the day, when we're all said and done, there's gonna be about 50-ish spots available right alongside of the trip parking garage. So that'll be able to, recoup at the end of the day, so. So that's kind of our plan on that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Are there questions from members of the public for the chief and deputy chief? Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you for your time,
This was-
appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We look forward to
Thank
more updates. Okay, so now we're moving on to public comments. So at this point, we welcome comments from members of the public about issues that are not topics on tonight's agenda. And whenever you read from a prepared statement, please provide a copy to the clerk. And please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Guy Hazelman, 21 Ruthven Place. Council President, earlier today, I saw a bunch of young kids gathered around, and they were having fun trying to come up with all the nicknames for cannabis that they could. And I thought about when I went to Summit High School, when there was absolutely no marijuana in Summit High School, but we had cute names for it. Pot, grass, dope, reefer, doobie. And I always think it's kind of cute when people create their own language within a language. And the other day, I actually heard a nickname for the Summit Broad Street development that at first I thought was kind of cute. It did make me chuckle. It was called Nora's Ark. And I thought about that. And then the more I thought about it, that's kind of not funny. And I think they say it because the sky's going to be blotted out, the sun, by the ark itself. And what will rain down is not rain, but will be cars that can't get a parking spot on the ark, and they're going to rain down on the sidewalk. I just kind of thought it was a cute analogy that I thought I would share and let you all know that that happens to be a conversation that other people are having downtown. And then the last thing I'll just say to conclude is, you're all volunteers, and I think your service can be really tough. And if you run for reelection or for higher office, I think you should say what your accomplishments are. You should say, have people get to know who you are. And I think one thing you can say is, boy, are you able to make decisions and stick by your conviction. And that can be a good thing, but the complete story is, in this case, with the Broad Street, I think what's happening is you also have to add that you're going to ignore thousands of people who are against it in opposition. And to still be able to make that decision is pretty tough when it's the voters who put you here to make that. So I just hope that you stay flexible, continue to try to listen. Let's continue to have that dialogue, because I still don't think that dialogue is where we need it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hazelman. Okay, does anyone else have comments?
Evening.
Good evening.
Tina Rosen, 142 Mountain. Well, is that better?
Yep.
Better?
Good.
While everyone doesn't agree on all the details of Broad Street West redevelopment project, I think everyone would agree we all care deeply about Summit. I believe council is working with the redevelopers on a plan that's in the best interest of Summit. I trust council and I trust the process. I also believe council is taking residents' input to heart. When they state they're sharing concerns or suggestions with the redevelopers, I take them at their word. Not all suggestions are feasible. The pandemic has brought out a lot of armchair experts. I look forward to hearing the parking proposal. I support the Broad Street West redevelopment project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosen. Okay, are there any other comments? Mr. Bennett? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Radis, members of Common Council. I'm Jim Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, 38 Fairview Avenue. First, this is probably overdue. I'd like to thank you for the time you continue to spend on Broad Street West. Now, last night, 3 key people from the group Residents for Summit did meet with Mayor Radis, Council President Fox, and Council Member Vartan. And I'd like to thank the 3 of you for taking the time to meet and hope that the gathering was fruitful and informative. Residents for Summit has reached out to all members of council to meet in clusters of 2 or 3 to stay on the right side of the Open Public Meetings Act. And so far, we've heard from Councilmember Allen, who said she's willing to meet. But we've not yet heard from Council members O'Sullivan, Miniger, Hairston, or Little. And I hope that the 4 of you will respond favorably to the invitation and take a meeting. Your votes count as much on council as anyone else's. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Are there any other comments? Come on up, Mr. Hardy.
Council, I'm Carrie Hardy, and I've lived in Summit a long time and worked in Summit a long time and have seen how you all work and really do appreciate it, and how council people before you work. You're volunteers, and you need to know you are appreciated. I'd like to speak to the point of just suggesting that on Broad Street West, you remain flexible and listen carefully. I know you've listened carefully to all your experts prior to this, but people are now just waking up to what is happening. And I know it's tedious to have to re-listen to some of all this again, but it's important. The other point I'd like to make is that I'm not sure that you have to look to get the last cent out of this project. And perhaps by lowering the number of units, I know that means that would lower the sales price, but maybe that's something that needs to be done in order to conform with the development project, and also to conform with what's already in downtown Summit, basically 4.5 stories. So those things I think are important, and as we go ahead, let us all be listening. And again, I thank the three of you who met with us. We appreciate it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Okay, any other comments? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Vivian Hardy. I didn't know he was going to speak. So
You didn't
he may have
coordinate.
stolen some of the things I was going to say. Anyway, I'm very glad to be here tonight because today has been a great day for me. I actually learned a lot about Broad Street West and the proposal. I had surmised that the funding of the firehouse was going to be directly related to Broad Street West. And I now know that the firehouse will be funded by a long-term bond. That was very good news to me. I also know that the size of the project is driven by Common Council wanting to maximize the sale of of the last piece of property that is owned by the town. And I admire the Common Council for wanting to do that. But what does all this lead to? It leads to a yin and a yang situation. There's Common Council over here really wanting to maximize that value. And then there is the Broad Street West people, the residents of Summit, who want to make sure that we're maximizing the quality of life here in Summit too. Parking, traffic, following current zoning regulations and density requirements. This is all going to require negotiation. It really needs to occur. And we can't move forward. I hope you won't move forward, actually, until the parking situation has been made open to the public and part of the negotiating process. I hope all the members of Common Council will meet with the residents of Summit, as Jim formally said, and listen and represent the will of the voters. More than 1,090 people have signed the petition, and there's still more to come. That's close to 30% of the active voters of the town. 10 years ago, when there was a threat to the library by the current mayor at that time, 70 people gathered, and the members of Common Council, a few representatives, came to our meeting upstairs here and heard what those 70 people had to say. It went back to Common Council, and the library was not turned into a community center, and the books stayed on the shelves. So I hope you will do that kind of listening that was done 10 years ago, many other times with Common Council in the past too. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Any other comments?
Good evening. I have come home. My name is Millie Cooper, Cooper, 1 Euclid Avenue, apartment 6F. Yes, this is the city family. That's what we always called it. And we are all residents of Summit. That is really true. When I see Chief Evers here, I mean, I was head of council 30 years ago, as Al Dill reminded us all a few weeks ago. And we knew each other then. And then the fire department was asked to wait. Yes, indeed. We were building the city hall. And so we knew that you needed what you're getting now. So I really didn't know the agenda of tonight, and I was really thrilled to hear all about it. And you're doing a wonderful job. Congratulations. They were my boys, I used to say. They still go past my apartment, and I'm waving. They don't see me. But it's the city family. And that's what this is really about, and why I thought I would come. Because the city of Summit has had wonderful volunteers, as we've talked about. And you all are there. That's just where I sat, Greg, right there. And we had a lot of different discussions. First of all, where the city hall was going to be. You've heard all about that from me already. And most of the council really wanted it on the green, as you know, have you heard me say. And the town citizens didn't. And so we had 3 spots. This spot, the green, and the Dell, which is back of Franklin Place, which is being built in there now. And that was the 3rd place. But that was too far from town. So we came here, and we really couldn't afford. I thought they wouldn't sell it to us, the 7-Eleven, but very frankly, we couldn't afford it, which is why we have what we have here. And we didn't have enough parking. And we were very happy when we finally got the little piece of the triangle over there, the end of Chestnut, and got some parking. And when I read all about and heard all about and saw, and I thought, oh dear, this isn't really, it's just not Summit, in my opinion. And It's just too grand. And I know everyone is telling you that. But I do hope you will, and you are meeting with, it's wonderful you're meeting with people. I know the time it takes. I just can't tell you how I appreciate what you're doing. And I hope you stay in Summit long enough, like I've been able to. I'm 88, I came here as a bride 60 years ago, and someone said, why are you staying? And I said, frankly, I care about the sidewalks. I really do. And I guess that's what I'm talking about now, the sidewalks and the air above them, and the look of our town, and the great love that people have, and you have, or you wouldn't be sitting here. Yes, I mean, it's, you run for office, but, office in a small town, it really isn't, it's just a giving of yourself. That's what you're doing. So I thank you, and I trust you, because down through the years, I had other things I was going to tell you about, the Collins plan that you probably don't even know about, but that was the air over the train station, which was going to be built up high, and Mayor Bennett was the mayor at that point, and everybody said they didn't want that, and it was back and forth. That was in the 70s. But I'm not going to go on any longer. I just love you all, and thank you very, very much, and care about the sidewalks. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Millie. I appreciate all your thoughts and comments. I just want to say that you please sit down. That I often have groups of Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Daisies, and come in to do a tour, and I always have them talk to me first and then get the tour of the police department, because that's so much more exciting than what I have to say. So I don't let them go first. And they all want to know the history of this building. So when I tell them that it was a conversation back 30 years ago was to put this building on the green, all these young children are thrilled that the building's here and not on the green, because in their minds, the green is a place where they go to concerts, they see the screen on the green, the movies, so, 3 decades later, these children are just never would cross their mind that we would have this building on the green. And they're so grateful that your leadership, your council, did what they did. And it was hard, I get it. I know there was a lot of controversy. I lived here then, so I know there was a lot of controversy and discussions. But I just want you to know, all these kids, when I talk to them, they are just thrilled that the building's here and not on the green.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments?
Deborah Oliver, 37 Tulip Street.
Good evening.
What I wanted to accomplish tonight was to re-deliver the petition, but it's, I guess, just a cover letter in support of Residents for Summit. This was previously delivered on April 11th, and I don't remember what the exact protocol is, but the cover letter is the same, and I wrote it. And this is an updating only to change that the number of people that have signed the petition is now 1,087 plus a couple. That's what Millie included in her comment. And just to reiterate that the driving thrust behind the petition is to ask you all to keep considering presenting an alternative scheme to the one proposal that we've seen. And as before, the concerns of the people that have been signing this petition is that the building is too big for the site, it's too tall, it's too dense, and then there's concomitant parking issues, and as other people believe, traffic issues, and even some school-related issues. And I just want to refresh the memory from the last time this was presented, that the whole point of the redevelopment plan that's part of our zoning code and of the master plan upon which it is based is to encourage architecture that is characteristic of Summit and that has traditional scale and styling that emulates Summit's architecture and urban design. And the reason why things like the master plan, which was re-examined in 2016, and the redevelopment plan upon which it was based, that it is based upon, are important is because they lend some predictability and they ensure that the things that we care most about, that preserve the character of Summit, are maintained. So what I want to just bring to the attention of all of you is that the reason why this building looks so huge to all of us, and we don't need to have any special training or certifications, is that because it is double the allowable density that the redevelopment plan, which is now the zoning code for that area, allows. And specifically, the 3 city-owned lots and the 1 private-owned lot that underlie the proposed housing building add up to about 1.6 acres. Under the redevelopment plan, 45 units per acre are allowed to be built. So if you do the math, doing the 1.6 acres times 45 units per acre yields 72 units that could be built. Yet roughly double that number, or 140 units, is what has been proposed. So how can this be legal or allowable under the redevelopment plan? Well, the city and the redevelopers believe that they can use the total acreage of all of Subdistrict 3, and there's 7 lots that comprise Subdistrict 3. They believe that they can use all 7 lots, which total roughly 2.5 acres, to apply the density that would be allowed on 2.5 acres, but use it on only 1.6 acres. Now think about this. How would it be if your next door neighbor was suddenly allowed to build a 6,000 square foot house right next door to your 3,000 square foot house in the same residential zone? The result of this is double the allowable density, and that's why we don't need anything special, and our eyes can tell us, no special training, that this building is too large for the piece of property that it's on, or the 4 assembled properties that it's on. So my question is, how does council plan to address the discrepancy between what is allowed by the redevelopment plan and what the proposal is outlining, the proposal that's on the table? Thank you, and thank you for continuing to listen.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver.
Should I hand this to you, Rosemary?
Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments from members of the public? Okay. Did you want to cover the?
Yes. If you're ready, I will.
Okay, so if there are no more comments from the public, we're going to read the emails.
Council President, there were a total of 8 emails received today that were qualified for public comment this evening. I will just, they were distributed to all of the members of Mayor and Council earlier today, and I'm just going to summarize what they are, and they will be made part of the record.
Okay. Thank you.
So the following individuals sent in emails. Donald Nelson of Plain Street, Karen Sununu of Linden Place, Miriam Zahn, Woodland Avenue, John Miano of Park Avenue, Kevin McGoey, Woodland Avenue, Barbara Cox and Gregory Sachs of Mountain Avenue, Dorothy Butler, Bellevue Avenue, and Colleen McKenna of Hickory Road. In essence, their emails spoke of the concerns regarding length and height of the building and the discrepancies between the numbers of units as opposed to what's allowable. There were questions or suggestions to reconsider the design and to, in order to be in compliance with the redevelopment plan. There were concerns regarding impact on traffic flow, inadequate parking, a lack of loading zones in the developer's plan, and questions regarding extraordinary infrastructure expenditures by the developers. Earlier today, Council President, I gave you the list of questions that came with that, so if you'd like to
Sure, I'll
take
work my
on
way
that.
through them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So first of all, I'd like to address just a couple of things that were said previously by the folks who are in the room. Ms. Hardy mentioned that council's goal was to maximize the value of the property as compared to the residents who are maximizing the quality of life, and I couldn't agree less with that characterization. We, as council members, are trying to balance the value of the property to make sure that we get the best value we can for the property while still preserving the quality of life for our residents. But quality of life for our residents means a lot of things. It means being able to provide affordable housing. It means being able to provide amenities in the downtown area, to provide people living in the downtown, living in the Broad Street West area, who then be able to patronize downtown businesses and keep those businesses healthy. It's activating an area that's right now, quite frankly, very ugly and kind of desolate. And this will be an area where people will live and people will visit, and it will be a very positive thing, and it will become landscaped, and it'll be much more attractive than it is now. And I know that people have differing views on the size of the building, and we're hearing a lot from people who've been attending the meetings about the size of the building, but there is a balancing that we have to do. And I just want to reinforce that it's not just maximizing the monetary value, it's all the other things that come with this building that are important, that are consistent with the master plan, that are consistent with the redevelopment plan, and so just wanted to clarify that. Moving on, so we had one of the arguments that we received was that there was a lack of loading zones in the developer's plans, and I just want to explain that what's been presented so far are conceptual plans, and the designation of loading zones and other similar issues are addressed at the planning board stage during the site plan approval. So that is not an infirmity in the plan, as Mr. Miana, was it Miana who said that? Marion Zahn, okay. All right. Donald Nelson's questions were why discrepancies regarding the length of the building. There are not discrepancies. The length of the building is measured as the DRO, the Development Regulations Ordinance, requires that it be done. And why is the building higher than provided in the redevelopment plan? The redevelopment plan allows for up to 5 stories or 70 feet, so it is not higher. So the question that I believe Ms. Oliver also asked, how do we produce up to 140 units when the redevelopment plan provides in the guidance for 72 units? As Ms. Oliver pointed out, the entire Subdistrict 3 allows a density of up to 155 units. When we wrote the redevelopment plan, we had anticipated that we would be able to acquire all those properties. But 3 years later, we learned a little bit, and we discovered that some of the property owners didn't want to participate in this process. And so because some of those properties were not available to the redevelopers, the density is focused on the city-owned lots. And this is allowable under the redevelopment law. And this density is necessary to effectuate the city's goals. And it was anticipated in the redevelopment plan. It said it could be up to 5 stories. And that's what we're doing. The redevelopment plan will be amended, and there is a process for doing so, and we will go through that process. When we created the redevelopment plan, we wrote it, we did an ordinance here to introduce it here in the council chambers, then it goes to the planning board for a consistency with the master plan, a determination of consistency, and then it comes back and we have a hearing. And that same so there's nothing magical about the redevelopment plan. It is something that was created. We learned things as time went on, as we were negotiating this process, and this is, I've been told, extremely common that redevelopment plans are amended, and we will go through that public process. So that's what we'll be doing. There was a question about the parking analysis, about the total impact of closing Maple Street to traffic. So Maple Street has been closed only on a temporary basis. And that's only till November of this year. So we won't be even, the earliest that construction would start on Broad Street West would be in probably the summer of 2023. So there isn't any conflict with the parking at this point. We will be presenting we're finalizing a parking plan right now. We will be presenting it to the public at a special meeting, and we will be replacing all the lost parking in Subdistrict 3. So development of Subdistrict 3, once occupied, will help the downtown businesses by providing customers within walking distance of the downtown, contrary to Ms. Zahm's statement that this will harm the businesses. The proposed Broad Street West building design does not, Ms. Zahn's next statement is that the design does not conform with the master plan. And that is not correct. It is consistent with the master plan. We will be going through, when we do make changes to the redevelopment plan, we will be going through a consistency determination, and that's a public process, but it will be, the redevelopment plan will be amended to conform to the project. Then the next question is, with the exception of Ms. Allen, why aren't council members responding to the comments made by residents and Mr. Carlos Rodriguez? Surely council has its own opinion about how the project fits into our master plan and can clearly demonstrate how the project benefits Summit residents. Members of council have spent a lot of time responding to many, many emails, and also we've been meeting with members of the public, taking phone calls. We all come to these meetings and listen to comments and respond to them. So, there are some issues that are still being negotiated, such as parking, and so not all the issues have been resolved, and there's some things that we're not able to go out and talk about in public yet, but we are working through that process. So Kevin McGoey had a number of questions. He wanted to know about the extraordinary infrastructure expenditures that the developers are incurring in the Broad Street West proposal and what the total cost is. First of all, the redeveloper is going to be demolishing 7 Cedar Street and the firehouse. They're taking risks of underground storage tanks and other contamination on the firehouse site in particular, and they will be releasing the city from all liability present and future. There is a vacated Chestnut Street, like a paper street, that was once in existence, and it runs through the site, and it contains numerous utilities, including a very large gas line, and that will all be relocated, and there are probably some other unknown conditions on the site. This is a tricky site in terms of the site conditions. There are also existing city stormwater laterals that run across the site that will need to be located. The project includes significant improvements on public streets and open space, and then 5%, in addition to the 15% of affordable housing, 5% of units will be set aside as workforce housing to meet the needs of middle-income households. In addition, the below-grade parking in the building is extremely expensive to construct, particularly on this lot because of the grade change on that. The total costs at this time are not known until the excavation and site investigation is complete. Mr. McGoey also wanted to know, were financial bids received by the city from any other developers other than Toll and L&M? And in answer to that question, the redevelopment process does not require bids. It doesn't involve bids. In the summer of 2019, the steering committee put out a request for qualifications and received 13 responses from developers. We interviewed those developers and reviewed their submissions. And those submissions included financials and proposals as to what they wanted to do, and just, they were sort of very schematic ideas at that point. We then put out a request for proposals to get a more refined proposal from each of those developers. We received responses from 8 redevelopment teams at that point. And we once again met with all of the teams and evaluated the proposals. Then at the end of 2019, the steering committee made a recommendation to council, and council conditionally designated L&M and Toll Brothers as the redevelopment team. And then we began the process of negotiating. Let's see, the next question was, there's a long question about financials, which it's a lot of questions sort of rolled into one. So the answer to that is that Dr. Powell, who is the city's financial advisor, will be present at our special meeting to answer questions. And many of the questions that Mr. McGoey has asked were answered in the video link on the city's website of Dr. Powell's presentation. Mr. McGoey also said that the $1.75 million RAB loan if the city is paying that back, why is it fair to say that the city is receiving $8 million from the sale of the land rather than $6.25 million because we have to pay back the RAB bond? So we'll be receiving $8 million for the purchase price of this property when the sale closes. The $1.7 million wrap bond will be paid back by a stream of income from the pilot over a period of 30 years. And as I'm sure you all know, it's more valuable to receive $8 million at closing and pay out the $1.7 million over 30 years than to reduce the purchase price to $6.25 at the closing. So that's the answer to that question. Mr. McGoey wanted to know about workforce housing. We are working with our affordable housing administrator on the details of the program, but workforce housing generally is for people who make 120% of the regional median income. He asked how the rental price of these workforce units would compare to other similarly sized apartments in Summit, and I don't know the answer to that. He also asked if the 7 workforce housing units are technically affordable housing, and therefore allow the developers to claim a 20% affordable rate, which would allow them to qualify for tax incentives. And the answer is no, workforce units are not considered affordable housing units under the state law and do not qualify for tax incentives. So that answers all the questions that have been written. So with that, I'm going to close the comment period, and we'll move on to the regular agenda. All right. Okay, so we'll now move on to ordinances for introduction. We have a few finance ones. Madam Clerk, could you please read the first ordinance?
ID number 9641, an ordinance to establish the 2022 salaries, wages, or compensations of and for the officers and employees of the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Okay, Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. I promise I won't take it personally that so few people are interested in this ordinance, but that's okay. This is ordinance number 9641. This ordinance establishes salaries, wages, and compensation for all the employees of the City of Summit for 2022. This is for union and non-union employees, and this salary ordinance is introduced annually after the adoption of the municipal budget. The hearing for this ordinance will be at our next meeting, which is Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. I move to introduce this ordinance.
And I second it.
Could we have a roll call, please, Madam
Ms.
Clerk?
Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little? Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, so the hearing will be on the 1st of June, and we'll move on to the next ordinance for introduction, please.
ID number 9651, bond ordinance appropriating $2,170,000 and authorizing issuance of $2,066,000 bonds or notes of the city for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Councilmember Vartan?
Thank you, Council President. This is ordinance 9651. This is a bond ordinance authorizing the issuance of bonds in the amount of $2,066,000 for various capital improvement projects as outlined in the capital improvement plan that was part of the budget document. These various improvements are also included in the agenda packet, and we will have multiple opportunities to discuss them, beginning with the hearing for this ordinance, which will be held Wednesday, again, June 15th, 2022. So not the next meeting, the following one, and that is an error in the agenda here. I move to introduce this ordinance.
And I second it.
Okay, roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little? Aye. Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, and now I guess we have another one. Could you please read that title,
Sure.
Madam Clerk?
ID 9650, bond ordinance appropriating $2,170,000 and authorizing issuance of $2,170,000 bonds or notes of the city for various sewer utility improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Vartan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. This is number 9650. This is a bond ordinance authorizing the issuance of bonds in the amount of $2,170,000 for sewer utility improvements. The hearing for this ordinance will also be held on Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. I move to introduce this ordinance.
I second it.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little? Aye. Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. So we just got a note, the bonding attorney said it's June 1st, not June 15th for the hearing. So
we
we
were-
stand corrected.
We were wrong. Okay.
If I may,
Sure,
Council
go
President, I did speak with the bonding attorney because I wanted to make sure of when the hearing could take place, and he agreed that June 1st would be acceptable. There is a 20-day estoppel clause that happens after the final vote on the ordinance, and that's the waiting period before the bond ordinance can go into effect. But if this council wants to wait till the 15th, I'm more inclined, I'm fine with that.
Look, I would take bond counsel's recommendation.
Okay.
I think what we were our understanding was conveyed by our CFO, and I wasn't sure, and our CFO is not here tonight to clarify anything, but I think the council can rely upon bond counsel's recommendation for the date, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then I'll just add that, we should publicize when we're doing it, for real.
Right.
Yes.
Thank
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so did we vote?
We did.
We did vote, okay. I'm sorry, it's that time of night. Okay, so we now have a safety and health ordinance for introduction. Could you please
Yes.
read that title, Madam Clerk?
ID 9563, an ordinance amending Chapter 16 of the Code of the City of Summit to add a new section entitled Key Lock Box Emergency Access System, requiring the installation of a key lock box emergency access system for use by the City of Summit Fire Department during an emergency or any other action deemed necessary by the City of Summit Fire Department.
Okay, Councilmember Little?
Thank you, Council President. This ordinance is to introduce the requirement that the businesses that fall under this ordinance have a lockbox installed on the outside of the business, which would be accessed by a master key that is held by the fire department, which would give the fire department access to the building if there was an emergency inside without having to contact the building owner and have them come to the place of business. So in the past, we have highly encouraged these during the fire inspection, but at this point, more and more municipalities are using this system and in the interest of health and safety, and also the time that is required for crews to be on site to wait for the access. We are now going to move to require these to be installed on the outside of the building, and that will be we will be looking at those during the annual fire inspections, making sure that that is accomplished, and that will just allow for easier access in the case of an emergency. So I am introducing this ordinance tonight for introduction.
I second.
Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. So we're now moving on to resolutions. So we have two finance resolutions. Councilmember Vartan?
Yes, thank you, Council President. This first one is number 9643. This resolution authorizes the estimated third quarter 2022 tax bills. We call this the estimated tax bill because people should have an idea of what they need to pay. And while we know for sure the municipal, library, school, and school debt rate, we do not yet know the Union County rates because they have not been stricken. So the estimated tax bills are likely to be slightly higher than what will ultimately be owed. A final reconciled tax bill that is not an estimate, an actual bill, will be issued for the fourth quarter 2022 and Q1 and Q2 of 2023. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second it.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those, did you have something, Councilmember Allen?
Nope.
You're just smiling.
Nope, just smiling.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we have a second finance resolution.
Yes, thank you, Council President. This is number 9642. This resolution authorizes the schedule of school levy payments. 3 points of clarification and information. First, the city collects the taxes and then promptly pays them to the schools. Second, council passed a similar resolution earlier this year, but the fiscal year for the schools is July to June, whereas the city's fiscal year is the calendar year. This updates the payment amounts accordingly. And third, the dates are as close to the first of the month as possible, and the amount to be paid is $5,813,983 on a monthly basis. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second it.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to law and labor. Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. Introducing ID number 9628, which is to grant a person-to-person liquor license transfer for Summit Beverage King LLC. And this would be on August 2009, Mr. Marshall Weinman and Mr. Ivan Ruiz, through a supplemental memorandum of understanding, purchased a plenary retail distribution liquor license known as Summit Beverage King. On October 25th, 2021, Mr. Weinman and Mr. Ruiz, through an assignment of membership interest agreement, Mr. Weinman has transferred his ownership to Mr. Ruiz. Mr. Ruiz is now the sole owner of the plenary retail distribution liquor license known as Summit Beverage King. Mr. Ruiz has filed a liquor license transfer application with the city clerk's office to finalize this transaction and is qualified to be licensed according to all standards established by Title 33 of the New Jersey statutes. So I recommend this resolution be approved to grant the transfer of the plenary retail distribution liquor license.
I second.
Okay, are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the resolution passes, and we'll move on to law and labor number 2. Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. ID number 9662 is to authorize sick leave with pay for fire department employee, and this was as a result of our closed session discussion that our current FMBA contract allows for sick leave, and per the recommendation of our fire chief and approval of the city administrator, said firefighter is hereby granted an extension of sick leave with pay through July 30th. And we absolutely wish our firefighter all the health concerns to be taken care of during this leave. And I
You move.
I move this resolution forward.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay. Yes, come on up, Chief.
Our firefighter Lon asked me to say something. He appreciates council's past decision to extend his sick leave. He also appreciates now moving forward. He's been battling a very difficult type of cancer. He just wanted me to tell council he really appreciates it, and he thanks all the staff that is supporting him and his family.
Well, we wish him all the best, and we're thinking of him. We didn't want to say anything, for his privacy,
but he asked me to
yes.
come up. He
No,
really
of
wanted
course.
to express
Of
to the
course.
public that his appreciation to council for supporting him. So
And we are, yes, and we do support him, and we wish him all the best.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so moving on, we have to vote. Yes, yes, right. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we have one safety and health resolution. Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Council President. Safety and Health Resolution 9653 is to declare a vacancy in the police department for the position of police sergeant and police officer. This is pursuant to our closed session discussion. we discussed the impending retirement of Sergeant Peter Frank, who has served the city well and with distinction for over 27 years, and he has announced his well-deserved retirement, which will take place on July 1st, 2022. So we would like to declare a vacancy in the police department, both for the position of sergeant to replace Sergeant Frank and the position of police officer, since we will be promoting a police officer to that sergeant position. So I ask that we approve this resolution.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving on. We have 3 capital projects and community services resolutions. Councilmember O'Sullivan, would you like to take number 1, please?
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9583, to award the bid for curbside collection and marketing of recycling materials, recycling July 2022 through June of 2024. Grand Sanitation of Plainfield was the sole bidder for the contract for curbside collection and marketing of recycling materials. The contract will begin in July of this year and continue through June of 2024. There are no extension options on this contract. If the resolution passes tonight, the contract will be for curbside collection for approximately 8,000 residential units in 8 government buildings. The ongoing global downturn in the recycling market has made this a more costly line item for the city. The cost of this 2-year contract with Grand Sanitation will be $1,681,600, which is a 66% increase over the previous 2-year contract. In recent years, the City of Summit and many other municipalities actually made money on these contracts by shipping this material to Asian markets. Those markets are no longer available in the state of New Jersey, and most other states don't have the waste infrastructure, and the secondary market is very limited. Under this new contract, there are a couple of important changes that our residents need to be aware of. Currently, the city offers dual stream curbside pickup on Thursdays. That will be changing to single stream pickup 5 days per week on the residents' trash pickup day. Residents should put clean and dry recycling into covered containers at the curb on their household garbage pickup day. Plastic bags are prohibited and will not be collected. The city will be publicizing the changes to make this change as smooth as possible. I move to adopt this resolution.
And second?
Okay. Are there any comments from members of council? Go ahead, Mayor.
So I'm going to ask a politically incorrect question. $1.6 million, it's a lot of money. So what if the city doesn't pick up recycling and everybody has to take it to the dump themselves?
Mr. Schrager, would you like to come up and address that? I think that's probably going to be a non-starter.
I
but-
understand, but we're heading towards the nanny state here. I mean, let's be personally responsible.
Go ahead, Mr. Schrager.
Through you, Council President.
Yes.
Yes, so on it wouldn't remove the $1.6 million fully, because now we would be looking at installing a lot of dumpsters at our facility.
Right, true.
To accommodate it. Now, we're paying the tipping fee on that and probably hiring our own people. Could it be a few dollars cheaper? Possibly. We don't have a full analysis of that cost, but there definitely would be a bigger cost to us. If we could even fit what we would need to collect all the recycling, you need about 3 or 4 times what we have there in terms of dumpsters, so.
So the big cost is because we have no one's taking recycling.
No one's taking it. Unfortunately for us, we're bidding at a time, if you've seen the cost of diesel gas,
Yep.
which it's really a two-headed monster with no one's taking it. The cost of transporting it now with the gas prices, which there's no sign of it coming down, it's not the ideal time. Really, we need to focus on just reducing our consumption of plastics. That's the only way we could get it to go down. But that wouldn't take, that would be 2 years before the next contract when we could show we have less numbers.
Right. So reduce, reuse, recycle, and we Americans went for the easy one, the low-hanging fruit, which is recycle, because it didn't really make us change our habits. But reducing would change our habits, and, all right, okay.
Yep.
Just curious. Thank you for indulging me.
Can you just quickly go over what single stream is for people at home who might not be familiar with what single stream recycling is as compared to dual stream?
Yes,
where you might have your cardboard and paper separate from what's called commingled, which is the aluminum and glass, now it's all being picked up at once in the same truck. It doesn't really change anything. I mean, if it's put out in 2 cans, it will be picked up that way. It's easier for the company to collect it that way, but there's a little bigger cost on them than getting it sorted on the end use. So that's essentially nothing would change, but it could be in one barrel. If people have not that much to recycle, they could just put one barrel with everything together. If they still put it out separately, that's fine as well.
Great, thank you for explaining that. Councilmember Miniger.
Thank you, Council President.
Might as well just hang out.
It's not really a question, it's just an observation. This single stream, I think, at least to me, it seems easier. There's a potential that this would encourage more recycling, and it could have a benefit, maybe reduction in tip fees on the trash pickup side.
Yeah, it could, absolutely. Some people might have found it tedious to actually split them up, that some stuff just got thrown out. So it could in that, I didn't look at it that way, but it definitely could benefit us that way.
There's also a side benefit that paper and cardboard could possibly be weighed down by these other items you can put right on top of it. I know that paper and cardboard gets blown around on recycling pickup days. I think it's a good thing.
Got to stay dry, though.
That's right.
Yeah, so yes, put it in a closed container. The other thing I'm wondering is if there's going to be any change in behavior, because trash day and recycling day are the same day. So it might encourage people to actually use the correct can for the correct items.
Correct, and one, just to go with the 5-day a week, another way to look at it as a positive is they will be in town 5 days. And I know that sounds like terrible, but it's 5 sections of town, so it's not like we currently have 5 times. It would be, probably a third of the time each day, a few hours in the morning or afternoon. But when there is misses and something's broken, they're here every day. So we do have our kickoff meeting with the contractor Thursday. We've heard very good things about their service they're providing in Westfield. So we feel we're off to a good start, but they seem to be very responsive, and being in town every day, then it's kind of a guarantee. If they miss one, they'll just get it the next day.
That's good news, too.
Yeah.
And we'll be having a flyer, I assume, coming out. Is there going to be a recycling flyer sent out?
There'll be a lot. The communications office will be at our meeting Thursday, because we really, want to stay on top of it. It's not the ideal switch time, because technically our last pickup with the current contract is Thursday, June 30th. We don't believe we'd start the next day, because people would have, in theory, been picked up. Then it's the weekend, then Monday is July 4th. So there will be a challenging first week, so we're going to really get ahead of it and put as much information out as we can.
Okay. So. All right, thank you, Mr. Schrager. Did you have something, Councilmember?
Yeah, so 2 quick things. One, the first is a comment, which is on the convenience. I've, for most of my life, lived in the part of town where trash and recycling both were coincidentally on Thursdays. So that was nice for me. But I think for everybody else, that's great, right? And that's a lovely thing. The question that I have, though, is the current contract that we have, they were throwing things all over the place. Bins were in the street getting run over. There was broken glass. There was a clause in the contract that we would get paid for that back. The hope is that they just provide better service. But do we have some sort of protection in the contract if there is some damage done, or if there's, if they miss and there's a bunch of glass in the street or something? Is there any protection that the city has?
Yes, the specifications in the contract spell out certain dollar fine for everything. So the previous vendor was fined quite a bit, probably had their highest one this past month. So there was some money we did withhold based on that. We had a crew that would follow them periodically to get those for broken containers, thrown containers, messes, broken glass, broken down vehicles. There's a whole list that we do fine them for.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What is the provision for holidays for recycling? Will there be holiday pickups, or?
We'll know more after the Thursday meeting.
Okay.
We believe so, but and we're starting with holidays, so we're going to learn pretty quickly what they do. So they already indicated that they may double up, or they might do a Saturday. So, but we intend to do a full, to have a flyer that just details all pickup dates and the makeup date.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions from, sorry, Councilmember Little.
Thank you,
Have to remember to look over there.
I just wanted to reiterate current co-chair of capital projects and former chair, we've been working on these issues for a long time regarding recycling in the different markets and reducing the trash and the costs and the tipping fees that we experience as a city. It's an area that we've tried to be really proactive and creative. We did a lot of work in looking at the recycling contractors. This contractor is currently used by the city of Westfield, and they've been really happy with this contractor, so we hope that there are less issues with customer service. We changed the contract to allow for 5-day pickup and did some other things to encourage more bids to come in, and we hope that this is going to be a great change. But I wanted to echo what the mayor said, is that as a society, and certainly as a community, we've been relying on the reduce, reuse, recycle. We've been relying very heavily on recycle, and that is just not, really fitting the bill anymore, and it's not going to do the things that we needed to do. And so as a community, we need to start focusing more on the first two pieces of that puzzle, and reducing and reusing. And I just wanted to remind everyone of what we talked about at the last meeting, is that we are going to be starting a composting program also at the transfer station, which will also help, hopefully, by reducing the amount of food waste and the tipping costs associated with that. So we're constantly trying to find ways to be creative and proactive and to look at these. As Director Schrader said, we also looked at doing this in-house or eliminating, the recycling pickup completely, but that comes with other costs and other problems and other things we do, because the recycling program is mandated by the state of New Jersey, so we have to have one in place. So, we're just wanted to reassure all the people that are watching that we are very much on top of this, very much looking at solutions, very much trying to be proactive and creative in dealing with this problem, which is faced not only by Summit, but all the municipalities right now.
Thank you, Councilmember Little. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Schrager. All right, so with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're moving on to capital projects number 2.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9645, authorizing the submission of federal appropriations request to support the Summit Parkline Project, Phase 2. Federal appropriations committees are soliciting community project funding requests from individual congressional offices for fiscal year 2023. This resolution will authorize the City of Summit to submit an appropriation request for federal funding to our congressional representatives, Congressman Malinowski, Senator Booker, and Senator Menendez. Given the limited scope and narrow language in the community project funding, the Summit Parkline project offered the best fit for this submission request in the amount of $250,000. This is a very competitive process where every municipality in our 7th congressional district will be submitting requests for various initiatives. Only 15 will be submitted by our congressmen, and of those, only a handful will be actually funded. If this money is appropriated, it will support Phase 2 of the Summit Parkline project. Phase 2 of the project focuses on improving the Parkline's existing pathway by connecting Morris Avenue with Ashwood Avenue through the creation of a 0.15-mile section. The new path will be an accessible and safe resource for cyclists and pedestrians to use for recreation and transportation. I move to adopt this resolution.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we have one last capital projects and community services
Thank you.
resolution.
Thank you, Council President. This is ID number 9663, to authorize the execution of freshwater wetlands letter of interpretation deed restriction. In accordance with the Freshwater Wetlands Protection Act, the Summit Engineering Department requested a freshwater wetlands line verification from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for the Summit Transfer Station property. The line verification identifies the boundaries of any freshwater wetlands on a particular property, and the law requires that freshwater wetland boundaries be recorded on the deed for each lot in the form of a deed restriction. The freshwater wetlands and waters boundary lines must be shown on any future site development plans. I move to adopt this resolution.
A second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Okay, comments from members of the public? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so now we're moving on to the consent agenda, and I understand there are a couple of items that you'd like to pull out. Councilmember Miniger?
Thank you, Council President. So I'd like to highlight just two of these resolutions, Resolutions 9634 and 9635. The first one is the resolution that authorizes the display of the Pride flag at the Community Center for the month of June. June is Pride Month, commemorating the ongoing fight for LGBTQ plus rights and recognizing the contributions of LGBTQ plus individuals. The Pride flag is symbolic of support for the LGBTQ plus community. In addition, the city will also host a Pride event the evening of Saturday, June 4th, on the Village Green. The next resolution authorizes the display of the Juneteenth flag and the Pan-African flag at the Summit Family Aquatic Center from June 17th to June 20th. Juneteenth has been celebrated since the 1800s by the African American community and became a federal holiday in 2021. The end of slavery was a victory for humanity, and its commemoration at the federal level acknowledges Black joy, resistance, and ingenuity in the face of that oppression. African American history is American history, and Summit raising the Pan-African flag and the Juneteenth flag shows support for that complete history and celebrates this joyful holiday. I'm in full support of these two important resolutions.
Thank you, Councilmember Miniger.
Council President.
Yes.
Can I add to that? Thank you,
ahead,
Council
Councilmember
President.
Barton.
And thank you, Councilmember Miniger, for highlighting those resolutions. This last weekend in Buffalo, 13 people were shot and 10 of them are dead in a terrible act of domestic terrorism motivated by racism and hatred. At a time like this, it's important for people who are in power and who have privilege to use that power and privilege to support our neighbors, celebrate our diversity, and recommit ourselves to eliminating racism in this community. I'm proud to also support these two important measures that take small steps in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Barton. Can we vote on all of them as a whole?
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
And I need a
Second.
Okay. I forgot to ask, did anyone else have anything they wanted to say on that topic? Okay, we're good? All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So now we're moving on to council members' comments and new business. Councilmember Barton.
Thank you, Council President. It's EMS week, so I couldn't let it pass by. I encourage everyone in this community to please consider joining the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad. Becoming a member of the squad was one of the greatest things I've ever done. I've spoken a lot here about my personal experience, but as finance chair, please consider this. No tax dollars have ever been spent on emergency medical services in the 60 years since the squad has been formed. So the way to ensure that that continues is that the squad have enough members to continue to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So please go to the website summitEMS.org and please consider giving back to the community through the squad. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone? Any members of council? Oh, Councilmember Hairston.
Yes, I just, thank you, Council President. I want to thank Councilman Miniger for pulling out those two resolutions, and I especially want to thank Councilman Vartan for lifting up the sadness that is going across the country. And as we also recognize AAPI celebration, this month is celebrating that, there was also an incident in California that was resonating with that community, and I just want to make sure we're all aware and that we are having a moment of sadness and then continue to have hope in how meaningful it is that we do these things that we do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hairston. Any other comments from members of council?
Council President, I just want to say, I didn't know about California, but I think it is a really difficult time across the country. As we were coming out of the pandemic, we sort of thought that life would just go back to normal and things would just feel better. And I think the reality is we're just still stuck in a place where things sometimes don't make sense. And I feel very lucky to be in a community like Summit, where there is an enormous amount of diversity, enormous amount of empathy and care. And so my hearts and prayers go out to the families across the country who have lost those in tragedy. So,
Thank you, Councilman Allen. Any other comments? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Look at that.